We took it all. We brought them to our land. An endless night, ember hot and icy cold. The rage of the earth. We made this curse. Carved it in the blood on our backs. We did not see. We could not, but she did. And in the end...
What will I become?
Senua's Saga. Hellblade 2.
Play it now with Game Pass.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Whether you're selling a little or a lot, Shopify helps you do your thing, however you cha-ching. From the launch your online shop stage, all the way to the we just hit 1 million orders stage. No matter what stage you're in, Shopify's there to help you grow. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/special offer, all lowercase. That's shopify.com/special offer.
According to Collins Dictionary, a definition for zero is the point from which positive or negative quantities are reckoned. But can any positive quantities be reckoned from a film with a 0% tomatometer? I reckon we'll try as we attempt to prove to you that The Crow Wicked Prayer is not that bad. Welcome, one and all to It's Not That Bad, the podcast that looks for A grades in B movies and a proud member of the Pantheon Podcast Network. We have now reached the end of our Crowathon as we prepare for the summer release of the new Crow film starring Bill Skarsgård, and this one is gonna take some doing because we're talking about The Crow Wicked Prayer, and I'm going to apologize because in the lead up to this show, I kept on saying it with a Boston accent, so it always came out The Crow Wicked Prayer, and it sounds horrible, but I'm going to try not to do that anymore for all of you. You're welcome. But here to join me in this final Crow look, it's my lovely wife, Carrie. Carrie, how are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. I can't believe that we are here at the end of the Crow run until the next movie comes out.
Yeah, it's going to be really, really interesting. But so before we get into this, I'm going to get your predictions here. When The Crow hits theaters this summer, starring Bill Skarsgård, do you think it's going to qualify for this show?
I think it will. Judging on precedence alone, I think that it will.
You know what? I'm going to go out there and say I don't think it will. It'll be close. It'll be borderline, but I don't think it's going to qualify. And I say that knowing that people are going to have to put their memories of the Brandon Lee film in check, but we'll see.
I just don't know if it's the right time. 30 years after the original.
I think it is the right time, but I don't know.
I disagree.
If people will be able to disassociate the two.
I think had it been like 31 years or even 29, without the monumental memory of that the original Brandon Lee Crow came out 30 years ago.
You know what? Remains to be seen. But
I think it's ill-timed.
We're not talking about the Bill Skarsgård film in this episode, though. We are talking about The Crow Wicked Prayer. This is the fourth Crow film, and I'm sure some of you are sitting there going, wait, there was a fourth Crow film? But yes, here we are. It is the third one that we have covered, but the fourth overall. And this one, okay, I know when we talked about this idea, and you looked at, we knew City of Angels existed because the soundtrack was awesome, and Salvation was on some of the streaming services. Did you even know this existed until we were preparing for this?
I had not a clue. I was yesterday old. Well, okay, I heard about it because we talked about it.
Right.
But I was yesterday old before I ever watched this one.
I am certain that there are going to be people who listen to this podcast discovering the fact that The Crow Wicked Prayer exists. So I'm going to give you all a chance now. Dear listeners, if you wish to watch this film, spoiler free. Pause and go find a copy now, because I guarantee you there will be spoilers aplenty in this episode. But for those of you who know who we are and know what we do here, probably take that as a public service. So you don't have to watch it, because
I'm going to say pause right now, go to your local streaming service or find a copy and watch it.
Yeah.
Watch this movie.
You
Trust me
You
on
have to
that.
watch it to believe it, let me tell you. But before we go any further, it is time to take The Crow, Wicked Prayer, and trailerize it.
In the Bible, the four horsemen of the apocalypse act as the final judgment of mankind. But in The Crow, Wicked Prayer, they are the final sin of a franchise clinging to life. Edward Furlong is Jimmy Cuervo, an ex-con looking to turn his life around with the help of his love, Lily. But when a satanic cult comes calling, death is their only destination. Luckily for Jimmy, this ticket is a round trip as he gains the power of the Crow to seek vengeance. Along the way, he'll subject the followers of death to his own brand of punishment, while the movie punishes us with bad dialogue, Danny Trejo topless dancing, and Dennis Hopper doing an awkward dramatic reading of the Urban Dictionary. There isn't enough peyote to get us through The Crow Wicked Prayer. Rated R for Rotten Tomatoes may be right.
There's a lot to unpack out of that. Yes, Danny Trejo topless dancing.
Can I just call something right now?
Right now, go ahead.
We are not going to agree on this movie.
Oh, this is going to be one of those fascinating ones.
Oh my. I am ready. I am ready to battle, sir.
I am excited already.
We took it all. We brought them to our land. An endless night, ember hot and icy cold. The rage of the earth. We made this curse. Carved it in the blood on our backs. We did not see. We could not, but she did. And in the end,
What will I become? Senua's Saga. Hellblade 2.
Play it now with Game Pass.
All right, let's get started here. This movie stars Edward Furlong, David Boreanaz, Tara Reid, Emmanuel Tricky, Danny Trejo, and Tito Ortiz, and Dennis Hopper. However, there is an almost star in here. Alexa Havens was supposed to appear in the film. Don't know what role she was supposed to appear in, but due to scheduling conflicts with her being in All My Children, she couldn't appear in the film. The movie was directed by Lance Mungia, who had previously directed Six String Samurai and the music video for She's So High by Tal Bachman, and that song is now stuck in your head. Sorry, not sorry. This is the last scripted film he would direct to date. He has done some documentaries, but according to IMDb, this was the last scripted movie on his resume.
Are you adding dramatic pauses?
I am
by
totally
design?
I am totally adding dramatic pauses. The movie is actually based on the book The Crow Wicked Prayer by Norman Partridge, and there are a number of novels out there. This wasn't based on the graphic novel, of course. Yes, it is. The characters are, but this came directly from one of the novels that was released. However, we almost didn't have The Crow Wicked Prayer because there was a film being pitched around this time called The Crow Lazarus. And the movie was supposed to be about a rapper who tried to leave the music scene, for love, only to be killed in a drive-by shooting. The rapper in question was supposed to be DMX, and the music exec behind it all was apparently supposed to be Eminem.
Ooh.
But apparently, this according to IMDb, Harvey Weinstein hated the idea and went with this instead.
Okay. And That makes a lot of sense to me.
Really?
It does. It does.
Well, this is going to be fascinating to get into here.
More
Now-
on that later.
Now, it should be noted, very similar to Salvation, this was given a 1-week release in theaters before going to DVD. There is no budget or box office take listed anywhere that I was looking for this film. It just exists. And the reason why we are here, not because we have this idea that, hey, maybe we should do every Crow film that qualifies, because we're a little extra, are the critics. Over at Rotten Tomatoes, this film has an audience score of 35%. And as we mentioned at the top of the show, this has Le Gros Donut of 0% Tomatometer.
Or Le Crow Donut.
Oh, it's I don't know what's worse, the critic score or that joke about the critic score. But I'm going to ask you this right now, because right now this is the lowest rated Crow film of the 4. To you, Carrie, is this the worst of the 4?
No. Salvation was absolutely a steaming pile of compared to this movie. I loved the first Crow. That is not in question.
There is zero question. There is but one Crow, but go on.
I really enjoyed City of Angels, so I'm not knocking it.
There was hope there.
However, I loved this movie. I love this movie. First of all, I cannot believe that I didn't even know it existed, because it checks all the boxes of movies that I enjoy. It had, and I'm just going to go into this right now, it had that like desperado Robert Rodriguez kind of grindhouse feel. Now, there were other things that I'm going to address later that could have been improved. However, I really, really enjoyed this movie. I can't hold this in any. I have been avoiding Jay for the past 24 hours because I was so afraid I was going to let this slip. I loved this movie, and you should see Jay's face right now if this were a video podcast.
Do you even movie?
I'm
Seriously?
killing him. I'm killing him right now.
I'm starting to question if you know what a movie is at this point.
Oh my God. Okay. I'm ready. I'm ready for a
Okay.
fight. Let's do this.
Oh, dear God. Here we go. This might be the most explosive, it's not that bad episode ever.
Stay tuned, friends.
And it's all about the Crow. Wikipedia.
It's getting real.
Oh, here we go. Let's get to the breakdown of this. Eddie Furlong, who played Jimmy Cuervo / the Crow. Your thoughts?
I really need to lead the charge on this one.
Yes, you do.
Okay. As the Crow, I thought he was great. I thought he was great as the Crow. He was a perfect blend of just psychotic and unhinged. He had that like dark, brooding, goth, crazy-eyed look that he nailed. As Jimmy, I don't know what's worse, your Boston wicked prayer accent
Wikipedia.
or his presentation as Jimmy. I mean, I found myself scratching my head and going, how is he the love interest? What does she see in him? Like, yeah. What Lily sees in him, I don't get particularly. But that aside, I thought he not nailed it. Because, I mean, obviously, the Crow was solidified by Brandon Lee. There's no comparison. But as far as in comparison of the Crow's Salvation, the horrible presentation of this punk kid in like jock high school kid in goth makeup with like a crazy grid thing going on his face. I think Eddie Furlong portrayed the Crow far better. Over to you before your head explodes.
Yeah, because I'm going to sit here and say I actually did not like him as the Crow, but I actually didn't mind him as Jimmy. So let me explain here. Yes, I understand that maybe Eddie Furlong maybe wasn't the best choice for this, but you have to take a look at Jimmy's character. He accidentally kills someone in order to protect a girl. And then he's basically accused of murder. He's down on his luck. He's on the wrong side of the road. Like, life isn't going well for Jimmy, but yet for some reason, Lily actually sees the good in him. And that's the thing. Lily is, as played by Emmanuel Tricky, she is like the pure soul in this, right? She's like the Shelley Webster in the first one. She is the absolute purest soul of this entire film. However, she sees good in Jimmy and therefore humanizes Jimmy. When we get to the Crow, and I have to admit that Edward Furlong as the Crow is the third best Crow out of 4. Yes, I completely agree with you that Eric Mabius in Salvation was the weakest Crow that ever crowed. I will give you that one. I don't see Eddie Furlong being better than Vincent Perez in City of Angels.
I think they're on par. I mean, you have to admit he had that dark, brooding, crazy eyes down pat.
Who, Vincent Perez or Eddie Furlong?
Eddie Furlong.
Are you kidding me? He felt like a sullen, gothy teenager who was telling his parents to shove it because you're not the boss of me. It's kind of how it came across. Like, I wasn't feeling him. I really wasn't. And part of that probably comes into the directing. The Crow is supposed to have like insane fighting skills and like a very menacing premise. And at no point did I feel like he was menacing. At no point did I feel like if I ran into him, I would be scared peyote-less.
But no, it's almost the silent impending doom that I disagree. I don't think the Crow needs to be a menacing force that you expect. It's almost kind of like that silent psychotic killer that is he going to snap at any point? I don't know. Wait for it, right?
Yeah. I mean, it is going to be damn near impossible for anyone to be able to replicate what Brandon Lee did. He simmered in those moments.
Mm-hmm.
All he had to do was sit there and look at you, and you knew you were being judged, and you knew that your next action was going to be the determining factor whether you lived or whether you died. Like, that is what Brandon Lee brought to that role. And it is damn near impossible to be able to replicate that. And I don't even know if Bill Skarsgård's going to be able to replicate that. And Eddie Furlong did not replicate that at all. But the other thing too is the directing and the script didn't give him the moments. Because there were times when words were coming out of his mouth as the Crow. And I'm just like, oh, you said that, didn't you? Oh, well, that's unfortunate. There were some cheesy lines. There were some good lines, though. There was one line near the end. And Danny Trejo yells at him. It's like, why did God choose you? And he just looks at this. I don't know. But she did. And that line I bought. That line wasn't cheesy. That was solid. And that was the thing where it's like, at this point, he was like, I'm not going to fight you. I'm not going to like go to war with you. You can't accept me. She did. It's your loss. Like, that, and it was perfectly delivered at that point. There were times when he was good in this. I think he was better pre-character death than post-character death.
Yeah, I don't know. I see it differently. Like, I spent the first part of the movie going, they're just so mismatched. She should have picked the other guy. But more on that later.
But I do need to point out, and this has been a problem. This was a major problem for City of Angels. We saw the connection between Jimmy and Lily. We saw what they meant to each other. So when they did die, we're like, okay, he's coming back and he's going to get him, and she's worth the revenge. Like that they solidified the bond between the two and justified the Crow coming back.
Well, that's exactly my point, is that of arguably out of 3 movies, and I'm not touching the first one.
No, the first one is untouchable.
But the love story and the build and the character building and you feel for this young couple. You feel for him that he's on his way. I don't want to say too much, but this is an important day for him.
Oh, absolutely.
And it just becomes that much more tragic. Please, friends, if you haven't watched the movie, I know that, like me, you're probably just learning it exists because I had never heard of it. Watch this movie. It is not a 0%.
No,
it's not.
By any stretch of the imagination, this film is not a 0%.
It legit is not that bad.
And I will say, of the 3 Crow films that we have covered on this show in this stretch, this film is the only one of the 3 that nailed the connection before death of the man who would become the Crow and his love. This is the one that did it right. I will give full credit where credit is due. They nailed that aspect of it.
Oh, see, you're coming around.
Just wait for it. Just wait for it. Because there is a Snickers bar on hold waiting for me near the end of the show. Count on it. But since we've been talking about her, Emmanuel Trickley, who played Lily, and I apologize, Emmanuel, if I messed up your name. I'm an idiot. Just bear with me here. But how was Lily for you?
She was absolutely perfect.
Mm-hmm.
She was perfect. She was so, as you had mentioned, she was so genuine and so kind and loving and caring and so absolutely in love with Jimmy. Like, their love story, again, we just mentioned, it was perfectly executed. It was perfectly done. And it became that much more tragic. Again, you really feel for them as a couple. And, for all of his faults, I really found myself going like, wow, like, Jimmy is way out of your league, sweetie, but you were so sweet and such a perfect soul. Like, she was just so incredibly beautiful and perfect. And I can't say anymore. She was great.
Normally when we watch these films and I sit there and go, okay, I can see where they were going with the role, but maybe they should have cast this person and this person. There is no one else you would want to put in that role than Emmanuel Trickley. She was stellar in it. As literally, as I mentioned, like, she is the purest angel of this film and nailed it. I have to point out, though, and this is just pure irony. So this film was released in 2005. And this is the second film from 2005 with Emmanuel Trickley in it that we have had to cover on this show.
Oh?
Because the other one was Waiting, ... She was the lesbian bartender in that one.
Oh, my God.
Yep.
Okay.
By the way, we've covered Waiting, so go ahead and listen to that episode when you're done with this. But yeah, like 2005, she was putting out decent performances in films that deserve better than they got. She was never the problem, and she is definitely one of the better aspects of this film.
You know what I think I loved the most about her character is I said how incredibly sweet and genuine and kind she was. Yet, when it came down to it, I totally believe she was ready to kick some ass too.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, she had that incredible strength that I wanted to see more of her. I wanted to see more of the character build, but there definitely was enough. There was enough to tell the story. I so enjoyed her performance that I wanted more screen time.
Yeah, when you take a look at the women who've been killed in the Crow series, as far as the characters go, and I'm leaving City of Angels out because they really kind of glossed over the fact that the kid was killed, right? Shelley Webster, and then you had Jodie Lynn O'Keefe as Lauren in Salvation, and then you had Manuel Tricky in this one in Wicked Prayer. And in all three of those cases, this role was very, very, very well cast. Like, no matter what you say about Salvation, Jodie Lynn O'Keefe did a very good job, given what she had to work with. But this is the film that nailed the relationship before death. Maybe even better than the original, but it's probably on par with that. See, the original kind of did it more in backstory. This we got to see the relationship in real time as opposed through flashback. So it's a different aspect to it. And I wonder if a lot of that comes from the fact that this comes from a novel instead of a graphic novel. Because with the graphic novel, you're kind of almost beholden to the idea of using the graphic novel as a production Bible. But when you're dealing with the written word, you're flushing things out and you're allowing more of the imagination to take over rather than be mentally locked into what happened in the comic book.
Yet on that note, and I am so grateful that you mentioned comic book, because I love how at the beginning of this movie, it was almost kind of like, it was so cool how they did it. They kind of like showed a glimpse of all the baddies in comic book style.
Yeah.
It was, or almost like a video game, but it was the coolest. Like I started like on a good note with this movie because of that. It kind of had that really hip, unique feel. It was, you knew that these were badasses and you really got a very quick glimpse of their why, their backstory. What, like, you know, why are they the way they are?
Why is Gamora?
Right? You know, and again, it was comic book presented right from the start.
Yeah. No, it knew what it was, you know, source materialing from. But since you're talking about the bad guys, before we get into each of them, I need to point this out because this has been a sticking point with me for the last two episodes in both City of Angels and Salvation, in that for the majority of the baddies, they were faceless and disposable, and I didn't care whether they died or not because they hadn't been developed. This is where, once again, Wicked Prayer actually does a good job by introducing us to the baddies individually, by making them different enough, by giving them a purpose other than just cannon fodder at this point. Wicked Prayer smartly made them individuals as opposed to just a, for lack of a better term, faceless horde. But let's start with the ringleader, David Boreanaz, who played Death. And yes, they're using the names of the four horsemen of the apocalypse because they are part of a satanic cult, which, and again, before we get to Death himself, the idea of a satanic cult in a Crow film, again, makes sense. Like in the City of Angels, it felt like a cult, but it was never really talked about as one. But it's like, ish, whatever. I don't know. I don't even know what the hell you're all up to. But
I thought it was more drug induced, like a crime lord
with a cult-ish kind of crime lord
and the followers.
Yeah, obviously the original film was very much crime syndicate. The third one, Salvation, was more about crooked cops, except for the captain who had some weird kinky fetish murder room. And then you get this where, yes, it is a satanic cult. They are on a satanic cult type quest. This is why Lily and James get killed. David Boreanaz, also Booth from Bones, as Death.
Okay, thank you for that, because I swear to God, my head was going to blow up watching this movie. I'm like, who is he? I've seen him somewhere else before, but a very different character. And when you said it was Booth, I was like, holy. But I absolutely thought he was incredible. I would have loved to have seen him as Jimmy.
I could very easily see David Boreanaz in the role of the Crow. And as the leader of this cult, for the first 2/3 of the film, I was right on board. He had the perfect demeanor. He had the perfect tonality. He had the perfect swagger for it. And then we get to the third act, and I'm going to get to the third act in our third act, but whoo, start popping Molly and eating your peyote because third act is something. But no, getting to that point, David Boreanaz was the perfect villain because nothing was personal. They were just, Jimmy and Lily were just tools. They were just stepping stones to gathering the heart and being able to connect with Lucifer. Like they were like his heart and her eyes were what they needed in order to be able to complete this spell, to be able to for David Boreanaz's character to become one with Lucifer.
Now, hold on there. When you say it's not personal, are you sure it wasn't like he felt like he should have been the one chosen and that Lily went with Jimmy?
No.
Because there was that scene.
Oh, there was one line for sure, and I think that was more to put Tara Reid's character kind of in her place and on edge and make you wonder if they're going to be able to pull this off or not. But I think more so it's about the mission for him than it is about the people himself.
Do you know what I loved about his presentation? Is that he was like the silent dictator of this gang. Like he could literally just sit with his back turned, smoke a cigarette, and know that his cult, his 4 horsemen, and his crazy, crazy lady is gonna be basically performing this ritual. And yet, you know what? There had to have been more to it. This was, when you say it wasn't personal, this was personal. This was exactly to the book. This was the setup, the way that it was
the execution,
performed. It was calculated. This kill of all of them, like this was probably the best and most calculated of the Crow kills. And I think that's why I love this movie so much.
I can get behind that. I can absolutely, because it's for purpose, right? In the first Crow, it is for purpose as well. It is very much like you're fighting eviction in this tenement and Top Dollar wants the building, so you're dead. Don't be making noise where you shouldn't be making noise. Second film, completely random happenstance. Salvation, he died because he couldn't find the guy who really framed him for the murder of his girlfriend. This one, again, the baddies have purpose rather than just faceless hordes. Give you that one. You mentioned her, though, Tara Reid as Lola. Now, I need to put a career stamp on this. This movie came out before her days in Sharknado, but after American Pie 1 and American Pie 2. So, Tara Reid is established. She is one of the hottest actresses at the time, you know, appearing in things like FHM and Maxim magazine. She was in Van Wilder just before this came out, and then this comes out, and then eventually the Sharknado films. Tara Reid as Lola for you.
I'm so glad that you mentioned her filmography because I tend to wonder if this role was the cause of her demise. Like, and it's not that she played it badly. She was incredible and really, really scary and just unhinged and completely, she played it so well that you tend to wonder, like, if that sent her career in this like declining trajectory, because oh my God, like she had some crazy eyes.
Keep in mind, this is 4 years after she already, in my opinion, hit her cinematic peak. because, of course, in 2001, and this movie qualifies, and one day we are going to cover this because this film needs defending like you wouldn't believe. She was in Josie and the Pussycats in 2001.
Right.
And that movie is a freaking gem. I love that film.
But you know what? That's the thing is I'm so glad you mentioned Josie and the Pussycats because really Tara Reid is adorable. She looks to be like you could be her best friend.
Mm-hmm.
But in this movie, woo.
But with that being said, and I know I had to mentally tell myself Sharknado hasn't happened at this point. Sharknado has not happened at this point. All 6 Sharknado films have not happened by this point. Whew. So I took that out of the equation. And I'm like, she's actually not bad in this.
No, she was great.
Like, I expected some weird, crazy, over the top, cuckoo nutty Cocoa for Puffs kind of thing. And it wasn't. She played it straight. She played it, a little on the manic side, like that underlying psycho, because she literally cuts the eyes at a lily so she can eat them, so she can complete that part of the ritual. So of course Lola's going to be a little hoo-hoo, but
she was the psycho that you didn't see coming.
Yeah.
Again, because she has that very sweet demeanor. Like, I mean, I was shocked and I was like, wow. And she played it again. It wasn't over the top because she towed the line, because, she leaves you guessing. And the character build in the third part, which I know we're going to come back to. We're going to circle back.
That third act is going to take some time.
However, it gives incredible depth to her character, and it was necessary. But whoo,
yeah,
we'll get there.
I'm going to give Tara Reid all the credit on this one.
Mm-hmm.
She made Lola a much more 3-dimensional character than she probably was on the page. Like, Tara Reid made you wonder just how crazy she was, how committed she was to this. Like, there was so much more to what was going on, and Tara Reid actually made Lola a fascinating character. We now get to the other 3 horsemen. War, as played by Marcus Chong. Famine, as played by former UFC champion Tito Ortiz. And Pestilence, as played by Yuji Okumoto. And again, we already talked about this. They developed the baddies. There was a difference between each one of them. They all had their own personalities and their own methodologies. So the baddies, for you, War, Famine, and Pestilence, how were they?
You know what? I absolutely love their character build. I completely agree with you on that. And again, like, when they encounter the crow, and like, you just have to know it's not going to end well for them, but you feel like, yet you feel for Jimmy and you feel for the crow, right? One and the same, but you also maybe don't want to see these guys come to their demise, but it's going to happen.
Yeah.
But again, it all comes back to that character build. You get a little insight of their why. Why are they following death? Why are they in this cult? And I think they all played it really well. They held their own. They played their parts perfectly.
Yeah, full credit where credit's due. Tito Ortiz as Famine really sold this one to me. Like, I did not expect a solid performance out of Tito Ortiz as from an acting perspective. Yuji Okumoto as Pestilence. There's that whole scene in the bar where he's sitting down, he's kind of going tete-a-tete with the crow, and it's like, this is good. This is like this isn't just a rando kill. This is like they're going to like almost like try to psych each other out. Like, this is a tense moment for that. War, not too bad until the third act.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right now, everyone listening is gonna be like, What the hell happened in the third act? What the hell happened in the third act?
I watched it and I'm still wondering what the hell happened in the third act. I think this movie would have been fine without it. Like, it just got
well, you had to have
weird.
an end, but yeah.
It was necessary, and it really did help answer a few questions.
But it raised so many more.
But whoo.
We're
It
almost,
happened. It
we're
happened.
almost
It was
there.
there.
We're almost there. So
Yeah.
hang in there, listeners, and get your Snickers bar ready, because it's going to be some crazy when we get there. But first, Danny Trejo as Padre Harold, also known as Machete Light. How was he for you?
Love him. Love. I loved the balance between good and evil. I love the biblical presence that he brought. And without saying too much, he brought balance. And, he was the father. He was Lily's father, who just could not accept Jimmy.
Yep.
And so, they had that Romeo and Juliet doomed from the start romance, right? Where they're sneaking around and, they want to be together. They're a young couple in love that wants to be together, but dad doesn't approve.
You know what? It just hit me this moment. As the words were coming out of your mouth, it all of a sudden smacked me right in the face.
I swear to God, I didn't hit him. Like, woo!
I do not have
I'm sitting across the room. It wasn't me.
whip sound button on my soundboard. So.
I am going to throw a Snickers bar his way, though.
Okay.
I'm prepared.
But hear me out on this, right? Getting back to Jimmy and just kind of like the subtleness. You said that Jimmy and Lily were kind of like a Romeo and Juliet kind of thing. Take a look at the suit that Jimmy is wearing when he's on his way to propose to Lily. Does it not bring to mind Leo DiCaprio in the Baz Luhrmann Romeo and Juliet? When they're at the end and he's wearing the tuxedo and it's like, holy crap. Like this, basically this hand-me-down suit so he can go to Juliet and he can ask for her hand in marriage. And it's almost like they tried to mimic that. It's almost like that was like the underlying tone. Star-crossed lovers from the wrong sides of the road, doomed from the start.
Are you saying that I completely figured this movie out?
Apparently,
Much by accident, actually. I didn't even mean to say that. I just, it really is. It follows, it's probably a cliche, right? The couple that want to be together and, the underlying factors or the outside world doesn't want to see them together. Nobody wants to see them together. But again, it draws back to the fact that their demise was so in line with almost a prophecy in these books, spell books, if you will.
So some discount Darkhold kind of thing. But, and I'm trying to, no, it's from Terminator. The line is no fate but what we make, right? And they're fated. They're fated to meet this end. Again, very similar to Romeo and Juliet. They were doomed from the start. Two star-crossed lovers from opposite sides of, in this case, the road. And the thing with Danny Trejo is, and again, I had to remind myself to forget Machete as much as it was hard to, but it's almost like Danny Trejo took the Cheech Marin role from the first Machete film, The Padre, and took that for himself. Like, he made perfect sense for this. And
no, oh my God, not from. It was from Dusk Till Dawn.
Oh yeah, yes.
The Harvey Keitel, right? The father.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Oh my God. Yep. So now we're seeing all the connections here. But then we get to Dave Baez, who was credited as Dave L. Ortiz, who played Sheriff Tanner, Lily's brother. Your thoughts?
I think, aside from the fact that he was incredibly awful to Jimmy, I think that the movie could have gone on without him. I mean, it was just kind of like, at first, like when he pulled him over, I'm like, what is this police brutality? Is this like, but then you start to realize that no, that's her brother.
That's the older brother. But then again, it's also, he's the first of the tribe to actually realize that Jimmy is actually not the bad guy in all this, that Jimmy's actually, kind of on their side and trying to avenge Lily. Like, you actually see a full journey with Sheriff Tanner. And the other thing too is he's in the third act, and he is the one person in the third act that didn't eat the peyote. And you have to give him credit for that. And plus the connection too between him and Lily. Like, that made sense, and it worked really well on screen.
I'm not going to lie. At first, I thought maybe he was an ex-boyfriend. It was a little awkward. It wasn't really well pieced together.
But once it was,
aside from the fact that his head was so far up Trejo's butt,
up his peyote.
Can we just circle back for a moment to when Lily was giving that speech, and they drew the parallel back to the first Crow?
Yes,
and she basically, She talks about the crow and how it goes to the land of the dead. And it was just kind of like, oh my God. At that point, I think it was that moment that sold this movie. And then everything else was just getting better and better until the third act.
Dear listeners,
here we are.
We have arrived at the third act.
I'm going to throw the Snickers his way now.
And the introduction of Dennis Hopper as El Nino. You want to take this one, or you want me to get this one going?
Can I just say, like, who wrote his script? Was it like Jonah Hill trying to pretend that he's Limp Bizkit? Whoo!
Yeah. Okay.
What the was that?
Literally, the very first three words in my breakdown were, what the You are Dennis Hopper. You are Dennis freaking Hopper. You don't need to take these kind of roles. At some point, you had to look at this script, look at the words on the page and say, I have to make those sounds with my mouth without my brain attacking me.
Okay, but to be fair, he was so incredibly good at being so incredibly unlikable and just ridiculous. And I think, you know what? It had to have been portrayed that way. That, I mean, the words coming out of his mouth were just so incredible. He's like the cult pimp, right? Like, he thinks he is all that and is probably so used to having people, I don't know, bend to his will. Like, so yeah, I think as horrible as it was, and it was bad, he played it well. Like,
did he?
Yeah.
I don't think you. I think you and I watched a very different movie at that point.
Any other actor, okay? Any other actor getting those words in a script and having to actually verbalize the words on the page, like that had to have been hard to deliver those lines. It had to have. You got to give him respect for that.
Oh, here we go.
It was so bad. It was so bad.
Here we go.
Ooh.
Yeah, no, okay, so the man was nominated for an Oscar at one point. The man has won film awards at Cannes.
Okay, but as much as you hate the character, he made the character hateable.
No, No. He took this film and he made it feel like it was made by the Asylum. It had Tara Reid in it, and I thought I was watching a Sharknado film at that point. Because that's the kind of dialogue I would expect out of a Sharknado film. And this is the point in this film where it goes off the rails.
He didn't write it.
No, I know he didn't write it, but he agreed to it. And at no point did he sit there and say, by the way, my name is Dennis Hopper. I'm an Academy Award nominee, and these words are This entire third act, with the way that David Boreanaz is talking and with the way that Dennis Hopper is doing whatever the Dennis Hopper is doing on the screen, made this laughable. It turned it into bad B movie, but like kind of so bad it's good because you're laughing as you're watching this. And that's not good in a Crow film. The Crow is not a comedy. The Crow is not an Asylum film. It felt like it should have been called The Raven Wicked Pair and basically become like a mockbuster. Because this third act is so comically bad. And it all starts with the introduction of Dennis frickin' Hopper going, hey, my homies.
What is up?
What is up? Like, it felt like Steve Buscemi in 30 Rock going, what's happening, my fellow students? Like, Dennis Hopper ruined this film. This could have been the second best Crow film. And there are aspects of the first 2/3 of this film that really have promise. And then it train wrecks in the third act with David Boreanaz doing some horny dance in the freaking cemetery, trying to get his rocks off on Tara Reid. Dennis Hopper at this point has already read the entire Urban Dictionary verbatim in some weird up peyote-induced dramatic reading. And at this point, Tara Reid is the thespian in the film.
Holy shit. He's lost it, friends. He has lost it.
I never thought I would see the words also starring Dennis Hopper and then start praying for the movie gods to make the credits come faster. But that's what happened with the end of this film. And the worst part is when the Crow completes his mission and death is dead and vengeance has been had, we finally get that proper reunion of Jimmy and Lily at the end of the film. But for a good about 15-minute stretch of this film, I'm sitting there looking at it going, what? What?
To be fair, and I'm certainly not defending that scene, but it also gave the layers of Tara Reid's character. It gave purpose to her reason for joining in this cult, and
Tara Reid was not the problem with that third act at all.
No, I know.
And that's the thing. Even War, Marcus Chong's character, went full on with I can only assume were flares strapped to his body, went full on nutsy cuckoo outside of the satanic cult house in fighting the Crow. Like, what is going on? At that point, I'm like, what the hell happened? It feels like a different film. It feels like you had a really good Crow film, and then
it had such potential, and then you're right, for that one moment in time, even Danny Trejo dancing around the Bible and the Crow.
Yeah. Like doing some like come back to life for the Crow kind of dance, like a rejuvenation or revitalization kind of dance. All the while, all the other stuff is going on, and David Boreanaz is like, ooh, like it felt like the first 2/3 of the script came from a very good novel, and then the final act, the third act, was written by Tom Green.
Well, no, it's clearly like what they should have put at the beginning of the movie is take your drugs now, because by the time that they kick in, then we'll get into the third act.
That's about it.
And you'll need this, friends. It's like,
take the peyote at the opening credits. Once the first hour has passed of this film, the peyote will have kicked in and everything will make sense.
And it'll all be okay.
Honestly, in the echelons of Dennis Hopper performances, and I know he's had some over the top performances, like he's a little over the top, but in a very manic kind of cool way in Speed, but this role?
It was the role. It was the scripting that was horrible. It wasn't his performance. But I think Harvey Keitel could have done a really great job in that same role. But I wouldn't want to put that upon him.
Those words should not be coming out of the mouth of Dennis Hopper. They should not be coming out of the mouth of Harvey Keitel. Like
Christopher Walken.
If Christopher Walken took that script and performed it himself, I might actually buy it. But it was so... And the other thing, too, is everyone else seemed to follow. Like, all of a sudden, David Boreanaz goes full chulo in this. And it's like, what happened?
Yeah.
It felt like a different film. The third act bears no tonal resemblance to the first part of the film.
It really makes you wonder, right? Like, was the studio involved? Was it like a recut?
I got no clue. Like, and here's the thing. It's not like they cut scenes short or they extended some scenes or whatever. Dennis Hopper was a grown-ass man in that room saying those words in that way, and at no point did he stop, yell cut, because he's Dennis freaking Hopper, and saying, get me my cell phone, get me my agent, and get me a dictionary. Because that's what was needed. Better words, gooder words.
Ooh.
Because that was like, up until this point, I was like, I don't get it. I don't understand why it's a 0%. Oh, now I get it. That's what the third act did. The third act justified the low critic score. Not a 0%. Not a 0%. But it took away and ruined what the first half of this film had built. And completely self-sabotaged itself. This could have been the second best Crow film of the four, and it imploded.
Yet, with the character build, with the love story build, even with the performance of the actors, notwithstanding Dennis Hopper, it really was, I think, as far as a package, the second best Crow movie. I really enjoyed this movie, notwithstanding that particular scene. And you know what? You can hit fast forward. You can get through it.
Yeah, but then I have to watch Dennis Hopper dance around and David Boreanaz dancing around at double speed.
Which would make it fascinating.
Like, dear listeners, I know that we're sitting here ranting and raving about this film, and you're sitting there going, it can't be that bad. Watch the freaking film, and you tell me at one point you stop enjoying the film and you just start laughing at the film. And if the whole film was like that, and it was like a Crow spoof, then maybe it's so bad it's good. But it's a half and half.
I don't think it was intended to be a spoof.
No.
I think they wanted to make it look so incredibly ridiculous to prove the point that, I don't know, satanic cults are bad. Like, really bad. Really, really bad.
That's how you do it, though? And that falls into the same trope of City of Angels. Oh, there's prostitution, and there's this and that and the other thing. I was like you have completely gone off the rails. It is a satanic cult.
But you know what? It is parallel to the ending of City of Angels when you think about it, because they all had the robes and they had like the ritual hanging at the end. And
see, here's the thing. If the script that Dennis Hopper had paralleled the script that Judah had in City of Angels, I'd buy it. I would buy into that. But instead, he's coming off like he's the third member of the Insane Clown Posse?
It really was bad.
It was.
I'd say it's more like MGK at that point.
Oh, dear God. Good Morning was a better film than this Dennis Hopper crap that he put together.
Oh.
Whew, and I never thought I'd say that.
It really was. It was bad.
Johnny and Clyde.
I'll give it that.
Was a better film than this third act. And that was horrible. Whew. I did warn you, listeners. I did warn you that this third act was going to cause feelings.
Whew. It really unleashed something there. It was. You feeling triggered, are you?
I'm going through some things here.
Yeah, I think.
Feeling some things. My therapist is going to need to hear about this. Ooh. Show me on the timeline where the bad movie touched you. It touched me right where Dennis Hopper showed up on the screen.
Oh my God.
This is the only Crow film of the four that does not have like a new metal, dark metal kind of soundtrack. I don't think it needed it. I think they were smart in sticking with the score that Jamie Christopherson had actually done for this. I think this film, the only band I could see warranting being used in this, Shingon, with Robert Rodriguez on guitar.
Yes.
That is the only band I would put on a soundtrack for this. But the score, I think, did very well for this. Like, it fit perfectly. You did not need Rob Zombie or Stabbing Westward or The Cure pumping out dark metal tunes in this. This film required what Jamie Christopherson put together. All right. I'm okay now. I'm okay. I'm going to make it. Whew. Because we're here at the end. So, Carrie, for The Crow, Wicked Prayer, who is your homie, your MVP of this film?
I almost want to trigger you and say Dennis Hopper, but no, I won't do that to you. We're not going back there.
Just promise me when we're done, when we're done recording this episode, and when I'm done editing this episode, and we release this tirade to the world, hold me. I'm gonna need it.
Oh, we've gotten through it. We're good. As much as I want to say Danny Trejo, and you know I love every movie that he's in, I really do. I have to go with Lily. I have to say that
Emmanuel Tricky, yeah.
Her performance was just incredible. It was everything. It made this movie.
You know what's funny? My MVP, as we have been talking about this, my MVP has actually changed. And yes, Emmanuel Tricky was always on my short list. Fully agree, and she's still on my short list. I originally had Dave Baez, who was Lily's brother, as my MVP. But the more we've been talking about this, Tara Reid in a film that, yes, maybe was the start of her walk towards Sharknado, but it's not because of her. She actually pulled it off in this. She actually pulled it off really well in this. Despite the lunacy of the third act that was going on around her, you're right. She was like the one actor in that third act that did not lose their mind. She was still on target. And kudos, because that third act, that is, whew, I don't know what triggers me more. The dead don't die or this third act.
Unless, hear me out, it was all in her mind and her perception of those around her.
No.
Because she played it so straight all the way through the entire movie. She was the only character that wasn't affected by the peyote by the third act. So, but really, when you think about it, right? Could have been.
No.
Could have been an altered perception
You know
of
what?
everyone else's reality.
Any change that you can make to that third act to make it not what it was, I'll take it. I'll take it. Yes, Emmanuel Tricky, amazing in this.
Yes.
Tara Reid, actually really, really good in this. Both actresses really sold it in a film that is not a 0% film. The third act, that's 0%. But the law of averages state that this film is definitely more than 0%. There are good redeeming qualities in this, and thus ends our Crow run. So next week, dear listeners, we will be doing something not with Dennis Hopper. You're welcome. Carrie, thank you so much for the last 3 weeks of our Crowathon. And to you, our listeners, you guys know the drill. If there was a movie out there that you think is unfairly maligned, or there is no way in Dennis Hopper's script that we can find anything good to say about it, hit us up on social media at Not That Badcast, or go to our website at notthatbadcast.com. And while you're there, drop us a message and let us know what movies you would like for us to cover. We want to hear from you. We want to watch those movies, and we will absolutely shout you out if you request a film. Until next time, she's Carrie, I'm Jay. You guys are awesome. This is It's Not That Bad, a proud member of the Pantheon Podcast Network. Take care, my homies.